Hello and welcome to. Oh, I'm muted in here. I mute every time. Hello and welcome to Check Your Six podcast, the only podcast online that gets a veteran's perspective on tactical games. I am here with my man Element, the project lead, not the lead developer. He declared that the project lead for SCP Pandemic, an upcoming hardcore tactical shooter based in the SCP world. It's a horror-based tactical shooter, and I could not be more pleased than to get this interview going. There's been a couple missteps. I'm a hard guy to schedule with, but Element's worked through it all. I think he's still muted. But when you get a chance here, Element, go ahead and say hi to the folks.
Hi.
Hello. So first off, thanks for coming on the podcast. I feel really honored that you do this. I'm so excited about this project. I've been really excited about the project. I think that you can tell I've been excited about the project because I've been bugging you nonstop. I'm really, really pleased with what I've seen so far. But why don't you just sort of do a little introduction on yourself, Affray Studios, and the project that we're talking about today, SCP Pandemic.
Well, I'm Jester, also known as Element online now. My actual name's Aiden. I, of course, lead the studio behind SCP Pandemic. We started around 2-3 years ago now on a different project, which we kind of shifted over to Pandemic to kind of lessen our scope and have a more realistic approach to game development. And I mean, yeah, I like rockets. Rockets are pretty cool. And yeah.
Do you have that Starlink? Are you part of that Starlink?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Starlink. Yeah.
I felt
Using it right
like
now.
if I knew somebody who had, I know somebody locally who has it, but I work in space, so it's not surprising. I was pretty sure I remember you mentioning Starlink in one of the other servers that we're in. So, um,
Yeah.
cool. Well, so Affray, is this Affray's first project that you're trying to take to fruition?
No, not necessarily. I think we've had a couple of other projects now, including like Ascension and Foundation Command, but neither of those kind of worked out. And we've been focused on Pandemic for the last couple of years now, and it's gone way farther than any other project we've done has.
Awesome. And so, what inspired you to start this project, SCP Pandemic?
Well, I started in Gary's mod, funnily enough, for like SCP roleplay and some other cringe stuff. But so most of my motivation kind of comes from wanting to kind of experience like a supernatural tactical world where it still feels pretty real. That's been my kind of drive because I didn't see that get done too heavily or like really tapped into. And so that's where the drive of Ascension was. It was literally me trying to kind of recreate um kind of like an SCP roleplay server on like a bigger scale pretty much.
So,
But that kind of just of course didn't work out. So
is there a lot of SCP roleplay on Gary's Mod?
oh, a fuck ton, yeah. It's a pretty massive community there actually. In fact, the name of Frey actually came from us. Like I was trying to get like a cool edgy name for quote unquote battling with another server community that I didn't like.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And it of course stuck. So
Cool. So I want to talk first before we get too much deeper into the game itself about sort of why I think the timeliness of the podcast. You guys are running a Kickstarter right now. Why did
yeah.
you guys go with the Kickstarter model?
We were actually originally talking to a pretty big publisher, like in January this year, around the time when we start transitioning away from the squad code base. And we're actually getting to the pretty later stages of that where we're like pretty close to getting a pretty sweet deal. But then they backed out to support another tactical shooter project. I won't say which one. But yeah, so that just didn't work out for us. And our plan B was a Kickstarter. We were originally going to launch really early this year, but we actually decided to kind of take on an additional private investment to kind of just bode some time, like trying to put more risk onto ourselves in the meantime. So we were originally going to probably launch a Kickstarter in April, and that would have been awful because the game for sure wasn't at all necessarily gameplay ready at that point. Like gameplay is actually a pretty recent thing we were able to start doing because we had all the systems being developed at that point, but we just barely started being able to take the initiative of actually properly designing a game that makes sense, if that clicks. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And so you launched the Kickstarter a week ago, right?
about yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna pull it up on the screen here for those of you guys watching on YouTube. Let me. Oh no, I gotta fix that. Hang on a second. So we'll go right here. So for you guys watching on the old YouTube, here's the Kickstarter right here. It's linked in the chat. I'm gonna do. I have actually a little challenge that I want to do for the guys out there. If we can get 10 new backers, at least the let's go here. What's your basic one's $5, but $20 is how you get a copy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we can get at least 10 new backers at this $20 level right here, live on stream, you're at 211. I see it right there. If we can get 10 new backers, then I am actually gonna back this at this $300 level, the administrator. I've been planning on backing it for a while, but I wanted to wait till the interview, and I could see. I know my community, if they're out there, loves making me spend money. This is a project I believe in, so I was gonna back probably at the $200 level anyway. But if you want me to go for that full $300 level, I want to get at least 10 more backers here for its Kickstarter. I want to see this go all the way. I'm a huge believer in this project, so I think it'd be really cool. So keep that in mind. If we can get 10 more backers at the $20 level, you're making me spend more money, and you guys get a cool game and some other great rewards as part of it. So Anyway, let's keep talking. Let's keep talking about the game. So, what makes this a tactical game versus just sort of some of the other SCP games out there? Like, what have you put in it that you feel focuses on that tactical aspect?
Well, so far, I think we've just really started scratching the surface on being a tactical shooter, of course. So, of course, we had like the basics, kind of, leaning, the dead zone aiming like Insurgency. And eventually we'll be implementing mechanics such as like mag reserves, kind of like Insurgency and Squad. Right now, of course, you just drop the magazine and you lose all your ammo. So, but we're kind of entering we're just barely entering kind of into that territory for sure. I mean, it's always been our goal, but we're just barely scratching the surface. But in terms of gameplay, we want to make sure you kind of want to be careful with how you approach your raids, and yeah, I'm really crappy when it comes to like describing things on the spot, but
So what sort of, I mean, you play other tactical games. What sort of games
yeah.
inspire the gameplay of this? I mean, I heard the dead zone aiming, like old Arma games and Insurgency Sandstorm. What else?
But yeah, I'm just gonna like double down, but like on the Insurgency Sandstorm. Sandstorm is by far the biggest like inspirational factor for our game design, at least for the player controller.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like level design, Half-Life 1 is a good candidate. In terms of like horde mechanics and other like melee inspirations, Left 4 Dead is a good example of, or a good source of inspiration. So kind of games like that for sure. Those
Now
are pretty big factors.
I'm gonna ask a question that seems a little bit off, but I've always felt this way. I've always felt that Half-Life 1 was kind of a horror game, and anytime I've said that to
Yeah,
people are like, no, no, no. I'm like, that is totally, to
no,
me, it fits
no, it's
all of.
100% a horror
It's
game.
just not
Yeah,
necessarily a scary horror game.
yeah, it's kind of I guess cartoony to some degree
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like how things are handled, but it's for sure a horror game. I agree with that 100%.
Cool. I'm glad I found at least one person that agrees with me in the world.
Again, it's not super scary, but it's definitely a horror game.
Yeah. Cool. So you mentioned the horde mode. I guess let's talk about Pandemic. What's the storyline behind Pandemic? Who are we as a player? And what's the background? Why are we going in and trying to fight all these anomalies?
So pretty much so we kind of have a bit of a silly side of it, but also kind of the serious side, of course. So overall, the situation is you're the Global Cult Coalition. You're like a division of the United Nations that handle like anomalous objects and supernatural entities. So you pretty much there's another organization that's kind of like that, but are a lot more containment research based, called the SCP Foundation, and they generally have a lot more. There's Secret World Government, a non-governmental organization that has a lot of control of the anomalous, and they have a lot of them contained, a lot of them researched, so they have a ton of knowledge and stuff like that. So, but pretty much what the Foundation have decided to do is they discovered a new entity that's in everyone's psyche in the SCP 5000 canon, and they decide that pretty much that, or they find out that this entity is incredibly nefarious. So they're like, it'll probably be a mercy to kill all of humanity. So it's kind of like a big escalation, but that's what that's their consensus. There's another side to that, but like be kind of spoiling the lore that's already out there. But pretty much there's another entity that's also kind of like making it even worse than it actually should be.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so pretty much the foundations are developing the PSI-Z program, which is artificial entities or use a biological base of different anomalies that they already have contained, and they're going to be like distributing them among civilian populations to pretty much wipe people out, on top of like the other SCPs already let out. So you're the GOC, you find out about this because you have a whistleblower inside of the Foundation, and you kind of pretty much raid their site in the middle of their own containment breach of the PSI-Z program that they're developing, because in the middle of them like killing an employee, they shot a control panel that like started a massive containment breach in the middle of you raiding. Pretty much that's their silly tie-in. So
It happens, man. That's what happens when you try to keep all this stuff behind glass. Containment breaches are almost always dumb. I mean, we just never mind. I won't say anything about a real pandemic. Anyway, so moving on. So so we're not playing an MTF. Are we going to see
Mhm.
the MTFs? Are they going to be out there?
That's kind of like a 50-50 thing for us because we definitely want to have like MTF you could battle, but like it's kind of one of those things where it'll be very complicated to develop, of course.
Hmm.
So we really want to, but it's just a matter of like, of course, how successful this project is, how much funding we could get, how much time we could allocate to it, so on and so on.
Cool. So what's been the you released a copy or a version for content creators, which by the way, the
Mhm.
plan is for those of you out there in Chatland, plans for us to play it right after this. We're gonna try to do a round or two just to get a look at it. So if you guys haven't watched Karma Cut's video, if you haven't watched Justin Red, Do Rag's videos, or anything like that, this might be the first time you get to see it. If not, we'll get to reinforce that and we'll get to actually play with the man himself, which I'm pretty excited about. Um, so, what's the reception been so far with that alpha release, that early access alpha release?
I'm incredibly surprised to say that it's been incredibly positive, incredibly positive. Like even when we had like the shitty like squad build, like where it had like no gameplay or anything like that, people were really supportive then as well, which was even more surprising to me. But when we started doing this build and playing with a ton or getting a lot of people to play, and a lot of people have been saying that this is something that they really want, which I didn't realize because I thought we were making a super niche game. I was like, this is a tactical shooter. We have zombies. We have these like other artificial entities planned. I didn't realize like people would be really that interested in this because I thought people might think it was just weird. But it turns out there's actually quite a few people who want this. So
I feel like there's an undercurrent of commonality between SCP and people who are into tactical games, as well as some other things. Airsoft being another one. You tend to see that the Venn diagram of people who like those things are similar, and I think part of what it is the a lot of the tactical games out there are kind of early access or like moddable or kind of like the whole history of it kind of comes from mods, whether that be Sandstorm or Arma 3 being a fully moddable game. Where like if you play tactical games, you're kind of used to the like creating stuff yourself aspect of it. And hang on a second, my daughter's being extremely rude.
oh, good.
Sorry about that. I had a daughter who came up and decided to tease me right now. So I'm not surprised that there are probably a lot of people who really have wanted who have wanted to get their hands on an SCP game that fits that tactical niche. Because I feel like SCP as an overall like collaborative creation, it kind of touches those same points of modability, creativity, trying to come up with something that feels real, even though it's clearly not. It's fiction, but you try to make it feel real. And so I think that the marriage between tactical gameplay and SCP is perfect. You know.
Yeah, I also think that Evan Royalty and Stephen Hancock's films definitely kind of inspired more people wanting this type of concept as well. Because like as soon as like they showed like these tactical operators like raiding like unknown locations, I think people really got hooked on that idea.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think I don't
big thanks
know.
to them.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if like which is the tail, which is the dog, and which is chasing which. But I know
Yeah,
in the Arma scene, SCP operations have been kind of a staple for years of like
nice.
really
That's
good,
pretty cool to hear.
interesting videos. So I think it's really
Well,
cool.
I just think I think it brought more people into what I'm saying. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that they took them seriously and they added that polish, because there's like the animations and stuff online, right? But those aren't necessarily gritty. Those aren't very
yeah,
real. And so I think that those movies are great. I gotta say, I think Dollhouse is probably not my favorite. I like the one that he did before that. Oh,
oh,
I can't.
what was it called?
Oh, I
Just
can't remember
Ghost
now.
Town, First Contact.
I think that's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the where they find like they go into like the giant water area. Yeah.
yeah. I thought that was cool. Um, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I think it's really I think pandemic itself is coming at the right time. I think that where game development, as far as indie game development, where it's at, and sort of the tools that are available, it seems really like a great time for an indie studio such as yourself to sort of strike out and try to do something new. There just isn't another tactical horror game that's really doing what you guys are doing right now.
Yeah. I want to like say this while we're here. We like zombies are just one of the many things we have planned. It's again just one of the things. Like it is the most easy thing to make right now. So that's why it's in the build. But like we do have other more complicated AI enemies planned, but we just haven't been able to do them yet. In fact, we're working on one right now, finally, which
So
is 173-B. So
that's one of the questions is how many SCPs do you guys plan on ending up with?
well, including our custom artificial entities that are like using the biological base of other SCPs commonly. Probably in the territory of 10 to a dozen, I'd say. It's a pretty good range.
And if I remember correctly, some of those you can't really fight, right? Like some of them are just kind of like
Yes, some of them will just fuck you up. Yeah.
yeah, some of them are just like are things you have to deal with or get around or whatever, which is cool because that's kind of the
Yeah.
SCP way, right? It's like it's not necessarily that you're gonna go in, you're not gonna go Ghostbusters on them and get rid of them all. It's about trying to contain them. It's about trying to avoid them and move on with the mission.
Yeah. Yeah, because like sometimes like we will make you feel like the hunter, but we will make you feel like the prey at other times for sure.
And so,
Um,
the game itself's going to have a storyline to it, right? You're kind of moving
yeah,
through episodes of a story that are kind of different levels. Is that the plan?
yeah, that's exactly how it is right now. Yeah.
And it's
The
oh good.
oh sorry.
No, you go.
So pretty much the first level that we're making right now, the Area 12 core level is going to be the first chapter. It might actually be split into multiple chapters eventually with how big it is and will be. But so that's like that's the starting point. Like that's where you stayed and where the story kind of unfurls from. So from there, there'll be two more Area 12 levels eventually. We have one of them as one of our stretch goals actually, because it's still require a bit of resources to get to. But so we'll have two more levels of Area 12. One will be a maintenance level with a D class cell block, containment cells for SCPs or chambers, sorry, and like kind of like a big sewer system, something that makes you feel disgusting. And the third level will be kind of an excavated in under construction zone that'll be just like dirt construction vehicles, like floodlights, that type of thing. But like out of there, we will have it so the team actually escapes from Area 12, where the story will continue outside of Area 12, like in open air and otherwise. So
Oh, that'd be cool. Like out in the forest or something.
yeah, one of our also a stretch goal. I'm not sure doing this to plug it or anything like that.
No, 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 we're here to plug the Kickstarter. If anyone's out there
What I'm
listening,
saying is not intentional.
we are here to plug the Kickstarter. We're getting information to you, but the whole point you're doing this, we want you guys to back the Kickstarter, because it's the only way that these guys can get the financial support that they need to make sure that they can focus on making this game. Full
Yeah,
stop.
so free range is one of our stretch goals. It's a scenario we've had planned since December now or so. It's pretty much an idea where you're gonna be like when you escape, you kind of end up on a small local farm, like a farmstead. Sorry. So you'll be so a part of the SB5000 canon is the Foundation airdrops an SCP called 3199, which is like a chicken man looking scary dude. And there's a ton of them, and they're airdropping on like civilian locations.
Hmm.
And you just so happen to be at a farm where it happened, which hence the pun free range.
Oh, free range. Got it. Okay. Yep. That's classic horror game there. They love those.
So you pretty much you'll be fending those off as you find a way to actually escape and like gather supplies, that type of thing, to like progress to the story. That's just an example. Like you'll be out in the open air. It'll be kind of like a brush area with like trees surrounding you, so on.
Cool. Yeah, I see that as one of your stretch goals. So that's awesome. So there's a lot of content. Obviously, SCP is a very rich world. There's a lot of content to mine, but it seems like you guys are doing a good job of focusing on the core of what you're trying to accomplish, and then adding other stuff maybe at a later date, whether you get the stretch goal or maybe as an expansion or something like that. And that seems really cool to me. Making sure you have an awesome core game. Now, is this a game that's going to be moddable, or is there any way that people can modify the game modes, add new episodes, anything like that?
It's definitely something that I'm interested in for sure. It's always been an interest of mine. But it's just a matter. We're trying to figure out what would be the best way to do it because, of course, there's always the Epic Games, mod kit, but not a whole lot of people can actually run that well because there's a lot of individual files to parse through, and it often it takes ages to compile the shaders, all that stuff. But so a potential possibility is us having a way to mod the game without having to use a mod kit. That'd be a lot more efficient. So that's something that we're interested in. But we just have to figure out a way where it's best for everyone because the reason why a lot of Unreal Engine games that have mod kits, even though they have mod kits, they don't have many mods to them, is just because it's a pretty high bar to do because you have to have good hardware and you have to have knowledge of Unreal Engine 4. So if we could find a way where we could allow mods without you having to have that high bar, then we'd do it.
Awesome. Well, that sounds cool. It sounds like you guys are pretty much open for anything at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what game modes are going to be available at release?
So 100% gonna happen is the core mode that's being made right now. That's of course we already have this investment into it to make sure it's finished. But
what's that core game mode? Just to make sure.
Yeah. I was about to say, sorry. So which is the main story. So it's pretty much co-op. You can have up to 12 players, but we recommend around 4. And we will eventually we'll have a way to scale the zombies based off how many players are connected to a server, kind of like Left 4 Dead. So that'll be pretty soon. We actually have a horde manager that's made but hasn't been implemented yet. That optimizes the AI, makes them perform a lot better, makes them a lot more alive, I'd say. But that's yet to be implemented, and it's not in the current demo right now. But so that we'll for sure have the core mode, which is the co-op story, at least the Area 12 story. So that'll be for sure going to happen at release. But if we could get other milestones on the Kickstarter, then we could, of course, do things like Meltdown, which is a PvPvE mode and all that type of.
I'm really excited for that mode. PvPvE is one of my favorite things to do. I really like games that can implement those well.
Yeah, it's pretty much Team Fortress 2 payload, but like a nuclear reactor core that you have to load into a reactor. So
what could go wrong?
Well, zombies are fucking.
Zombies are everywhere. So one of the questions that's been asked, can you play it solo? Is the game intended to be able to be played solo?
Absolutely, yes. Solo and offline support, 100%.
Cool, that's awesome. Offline support's a big deal, obviously, for a lot of people. They don't want to necessarily be always online, always connecting to a server or anything like that. What hosting modes are you going to have?
Hosting modes?
Like, is it something where you can set up like a community server, or is it only peer-to-peer, dedicated servers, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. We'll be, of course, partnering with a few server companies that people could buy servers from, of course. But we will. We already do, and we'll continue to do it. We'll distribute the dedicated server build through Steam that anyone could host a server with. We'll be very minimally hosting it ourselves. We want the community to kind of take charge on that. We'll have a few official servers. We want it to be mostly community ran. Did my internet die?
No, it's my internet. No, it's my side, yeah.
Okay, so where do we leave off?
You're saying peer-to-peer and dedicated, and you can rent dedicated through specific companies that you guys.
Yeah, peer-to-peer will likely be scrapping soon because Unreal has pretty bad support of it. But we'll for sure have community hosting, and we actually kind of want community to be taking charge on that for the most part.
Yeah, sorry, my my internet's acting up. I'm making sure my wife's not doing anything crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like in and out right now. This is why I had to restart several times before we started. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, well, hopefully we do have like a bit of a thunderstorm going here, so we'll get that going. Which is funny because I literally am not I'm not recording, so I need this from YouTube. YouTube, don't fail me now. I believe in you. I think it's actually on YouTube's end, to be honest, because their ingest servers really suck. That's one thing that Twitch has over YouTube streaming, is that the YouTube ingest servers are garbage. And like if you choose one ingest server, like their primary, it might give you like 2 meg up, And you choose another one, it's unlimited, and it's like totally random as to what you're getting.
Jesus.
Anyway, let that settle out. I don't know if it's gonna settle out. I might have to do a quick stream restart. Go run upstairs, make sure my kids aren't watching every TV show possible. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to step away just